Hey, this is Brian with ActiveMelody.com. For this week's guitar lesson, we have a very laid-back lead. It's played in sort of the Cale style. It's also got kind of a Tony Joe White thing going on, but it's much more emotional than it is technical. I guess that's probably the easiest way to say it. So I've got the lesson split into two parts. In this video, we'll take a look at the first half. If you'd like to watch the second half and download the tablature and get the MP3 jam tracks, which I have in multiple tempos, you can get all of those learning assets by going to ActiveMelody.com, go to the weekly lessons page, and do a search for EP373. Alright, so J.J. Cale is one of my favorite all-time guitar players because he's so laid back and chill. And that's what I called this week, because it's kind of this laid back, it creates a type of mood. And I think of Tony Joe White in the same way, another guitar player, songwriter, that just creates the kind of thing you could listen to intently if you wanted to, or you could just have it going in the background and it's going to work in both scenarios. It's just emotional music. And that's why guys like, I look at B.B. King or Bonnie Raitt, these sort of household names, why they're so much more popular. They resonate with much more people than, say, Larry Carlton. You know, Larry Carlton's a great player, very technical, but not a household name, not in the same way that B.B. or Bonnie is. They're all great players, but to me, like B.B. and Bonnie are more emotional, and that's what I get when I listen to the simplicity of J.J. Cale and what he's doing. It's just a cool vibe. And so I wanted to recreate that this week. I wrote the jam track, and I just sort of made up a lead on top of it. And so let me walk you through what I did, or at least my thought process for playing this lead. It's not as advanced as you might think. So I started with the two chords we're going to be playing over, which is a D minor and a G. It goes back and forth between the D minor and the G, or G7. So you got a minor chord and a major chord. Notice I threw in that C chord in there as well. That's just a transition to get you between those two. But it's really the D minor and the G we're going to be playing over. So the first thing I had to do was figure out where to start. Where's my home base with this when I hear those two chords? Well, I always, 100% of the time, I start with the pentatonic scales. And I know I'll probably be knocked for that from some guitar players that are more advanced, but to me, it's the best foundation to start something, especially when it comes to playing lead, when you're improvising. I always look at the pentatonics first as my framework. It's sort of my rough sketch. If you're doing a drawing, that's your rough sketch. You can color it in later, but it gets me in the ballpark. And so that's how I think about lead playing. So I knew that first chord was a D minor, so I went right to the D minor pentatonic scale. Now what I want to do, I'm going to play along, I'm going to put the jam track on, and I'm just going to play up and down the scale, the D minor pentatonic scale. By the way, we're going to be in pattern 1, just to keep it simple. So that would be, if you're playing your D chord up here, your bar would be on the 10th fret. This is your D minor pentatonic scale, pattern 1. I go through all 5 patterns in the blues lead course. If you're a premium member, you have access to that. But this is pattern 1. Now let me play along, and I'll just go up and down the scale. I want to show you how we can add 2 notes to that. Here we go. Now it doesn't sound very good at all, right? I'm just going up and down the scale. But you can see that even with those 2 chords, that works. Now watch when I add this. That note right there, 12th fret first string. Let's add one more. 12th fret second string. So now, all right, Alright, so I've added 2 notes. There's the same note again, but it's an octave lower. So now we're on the 9th fret 3rd string and the 9th fret 4th string. So these 2 notes are the same as these 2 notes. But adding those 2 notes to your minor pentatonic scale, now you have this sophisticated sounding scale that has shared notes between those 2 chords. Now, how did I come up with those notes? Well, I'll be honest with you. I just noodled around a little bit. I know that it's going to be either this note or this note. You know, it's going to be one of those 2 notes in between these 2 notes. I know I can add one there, and then same thing between these 2 notes. There's going to be one of these 2 notes that's going to work. And depending on which notes I choose, puts me in a different scale for different tonalities. So I just sort of did that very quickly. I was not thinking about it, and very quickly I was playing that scale. All right, so let me just go off on a tangent just for a minute here. And just talk about the theory that's going on, just because it's kind of interesting for those of you that are into that. If you're not, just bear with me. We'll get into the emotional playing here in just a minute. But one of the things when I was playing those 2 extra notes there in the D minor pentatonic scale, I thought that we were just playing D minor. But then as I analyzed it, I realized, no, that's not D minor scale, that's D Dorian mode. So this is D Dorian. Well, I was thinking, wait, Dorian, why would that work over the G chord? And then I realized, wait, D Dorian is exactly the same scale as G Mixolydian. G Mixolydian and D Dorian are the same scale. They have the same exact notes. So that led me to kind of think about this a little further. And then I thought, wait a minute, D Dorian. So Dorian is the second interval in the C major scale. So your 1 chord would be a C, right? The 2 chord would be a D minor, which would be that's where the Dorian thing comes from. So then I went up the scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 5 is G in the C major scale. So that's, in actual fact, you're playing this in the key of C. Now the crazy thing is, yes, that's D Dorian mode, and yes, it's G Mixolydian mode, but in actual fact, all of this is the C major scale. Mind blown. That blew my mind. I don't know why, but I mean, some of you would be like, okay, yeah, duh. But to me, that was pretty interesting. So really, all of this is just the C major scale. It's just starting on a different note. So you could play the C major scale over this entire thing and it's going to sound great over the D minor part and over the G part. All right, so that's the theory. I just wanted to kind of share that because I thought it was interesting. Let's get back to what I actually played then. So we're not going to be thinking about that. I didn't think about C at all when I played this. I thought about D minor pentatonic scale. And I went, right? That's the first 2 licks that we're going to learn. So we're down here in pattern 4 of the minor pentatonic scale for D. And I'm using my fingers for this. I didn't use a pick. You can use a pick if you want. I was kind of trying for that. I watched JJ play and he uses his fingers, so I was trying to emulate that. But anyway, I'm going to slide from the 5th fret to the 7th fret on the 4th string, 5th fret 3rd string, 7th fret 3rd string. A little box here. And I love little boxes like that. There's another one on the 6th, 5th, and 4th string here, down here between the 3rd and the 5th fret, because you've got with boxes, it just makes it very easy to pull licks from them because you can visualize them and it's easy. It's not like a strange shape. Okay, that's the first thing we learned. Then I go into it again. I went and played the same box, but then I went to the 6th fret 2nd string, and then a quick pull off between the 7th fret and the 5th fret on the 3rd string, and then a hammer on to the 7th fret 4th string. So let me play along with the slow version of the jam track so that you can hear that in context. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so after that I went. So I'm up here on the 8th fret 2nd string, 5th fret 2nd string, 6th fret 2nd string, 7th fret 3rd string. So It's just sort of a staggered effect, and you find that quite a bit when you're trying to come up with different patterns for playing your, instead of just playing up and down the scale, sometimes it's good to find a pattern. That's kind of what I was doing here. And then I went 5th fret 3rd string, 7th fret 4th string, back to the 5th fret 3rd string, and then watch this. This one note is pulling us into the G. That's the B note, which is right in that chord. That's why I went there. I could hear it. Right? I could hear that I wanted to pull into that G chord. But that note is still in the C major scale. Right? It's also in the D Dorian mode and the G Mixolydian mode. Same scale for all three of those. All right, so while we're in G, I went, and that's just playing out of the chord shape. So at this point, I'm actually playing the changes. I played the G triad there because I knew that G chord was going on. Here's something you might try to practice this, to get good at it. Play along with a jam track, but every time it comes to the G chord, try playing like a G triad in different positions. This is good practice because you can just pick the 3 notes. You could go, right? Find them in different spots, but see if you can pull those notes out of it just as the G passes by. You know, just try it over and over again. So we played that G triad there. Then I slid up to the 8th fret 2nd string, which is just matching the note we played. Okay, so then the song goes back to the D minor, and I went, right? I pulled the notes right out of the chord. It's just your D minor chord, but I played strings 1, 2, and 3. And instead of making the full chord with the bar, I just made the chord shape like this, the triad. 5th fret 1st string, 6th fret 2nd string, 7th fret 3rd string. And then I just went to another voicing of the D chord. Of the D minor chord. So there's your D minor there. I was thinking, where's another one? Oh yeah, there's one up here. And so that's what I did. I went, came up there. It's got kind of a triplet feel. 1, 2, 3. So once I played the triplet, I'm in position now to play in the D minor pentatonic scale pattern 1. Right? So any of those minor pentatonic scale pattern 1 licks are going to work fine here too. So just remember this, you don't have to play that Dorian mode. You don't have to play those extra 2 notes that I showed you. You can to color it a little more differently, but you don't have to. So I went, so that's 13th fret 2nd string down to the 10th fret 2nd string. And then I did a quick slide from the 13th fret 3rd string down to the 12th fret. So we had quick slide down, and then there's a hammer on that, so I'm going to bar there the first 3 strings on that 10th fret. I'm going to play the 3rd string, hammer onto the 12th fret, and then the 10th fret 2nd string, and then back to the 12th fret 3rd string. So we have, I think to conclude that lick, I went a pull off and down to the 12th fret 4th string. Let me back up. I'll play along with the slow version of the jam track again, up to that, from the beginning up to that point, so we can put it in context. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, so hopefully you're seeing that most of what I'm playing is just minor pentatonic scale stuff. But I've got those extra notes that I can work in, and I do in a few spots. I would encourage you to play along with the jam track and just try and play through that scale. It's in all your 5 positions of your pentatonics, just add those 2 extra notes. You can work that out. And just, you can start to come up with some pretty cool sounding stuff. Okay, so after that, I went, and that's actually where we're going to wrap up this lesson. I'm going to show you, or this part 1 rather. I'm going to show you this lick. So what I'm doing there is the classic blues lick. So I've got the strings 1 and 2 barred here on the 10th fret, and I'm going to play the 12th fret 3rd string, full bend, I use my thumb for that, and then strings 2, and then string 1. So you have, and then you're back to the 2nd string, and then a full bend on the 13th fret 2nd string, and then back to that 10th fret 1st string. So all together slowly. And then I did this lick. Now I got this from Jerry Garcia. He does this quite a bit, these little series of pull-offs. So while I've got my index finger on the 10th fret 1st string, I'm going to come up here with my ring finger to the 12th fret 1st string. And then I put my middle finger on the 11th fret 1st string so that I can do this series of pull-offs. So just practice that. And then we're going to come down and do a hammer-on to the 13th fret 2nd string. So all together you have. Alright, so let me play through that slowly. So we have. After that, we're back to the 10th fret 1st string, and then back to the 13th fret 2nd string. And then I wrapped it up there on the 10th fret 2nd string. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4. Now that's as far as we're going to get in this part 1 video, and I want you to take these licks and really practice playing them along with both the slow version of the jam track and the up-tempo version. Just kind of get the feel for it, and then start straying from that and seeing what you can come up with now that you understand the scales that are being used and how everything is tied back to the pentatonics. Alright, so that wraps up part 1. I'll see you in part 2. Where we'll cover the rest of this. And if you're not a premium member, look into it. It's extremely affordable. You have access to jam tracks, tablature, all of the lesson materials, and I have over 370 of them, and there's a new one every week, so it's definitely worth looking into.